Welcome back to DJ's workshop. Today we'll be learning how to fix small damages to our wooden floor. I know like me, many of you have wooden floor, and like me, many of you has a lot of many kids. Oftentimes kids enjoy themselves and end up damaging wood floor. Same thing happened with me. I don't know how, but my young boy managed to damage the wood floor. As you can see, it's not a small chip, it's kind of pretty deep inside. I'm running my finger, it's getting caught there. It's pretty decent, deep damage onto my wood floor. In order to fix that, what you're gonna need is a wood filler. What I went and did was went and bought this plastic wood filler from a Home Depot. What I'm gonna be doing is using that to fill this gap. Once it's filled, I'm gonna clean up around it and let it dry. Once it's dried, we'll be sanding it off and leveling it, and then next thing is gonna be matching the stain on it. The magical thing about this thing is actually it is stainable or paintable and also stays on top. So let's start. I've already opened that tube and I'm going to be very careful to make sure that I deposit that into the damaged area only, so I don't have to do too much of cleanup. Right here. Okay, close the tube off with my finger. I'm going to press it through the gaps to make sure I fill all the gaps. I'm going to apply gentle pressure to make sure that fills all the gaps. As you can see, gaps are filled now. I'm using paper towel to clean my fingers, but you can use simple rag as well. I'm going to try my best to take off excess wood fill. After that, I'm going to take tool and flatten it up. As you can see, I have some excess wood filler stuck onto the outside part of the wood which wasn't damaged. So I'm going to take a little damp rag or cloth and just kind of go over all the excess part. You don't want to press too hard, otherwise you're going to go and take off all the filling that you just put in place. Okay. Can still feel there's a little dip up here, so I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna apply a filler again. That happened because I pressed it a little too hard. So this time take off excess. I'm going to let this be very careful. You can see this time I'm not using my finger at all to take out any excess from the damaged part. Just using on the edges to remove any excess filler. That's it. Now we'll just wait for this filler to dry out, and the next part is we come back here once it's dried out, sand it off with very fine grit sandpaper if needed, and then we'll go back and stain to match our wood, and after that our job will be done. Now that your filling is dried out, Next thing we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be sanding this and then staining to match this surface. You gotta be careful in selecting the sanding paper. What I'm using is 1800 grit. It's very fine. You don't want to use a coarse one, otherwise it's gonna scratch your wood. So I'm using 1800 grit sandpaper to just smooth out the surface and remove any excess wood fillers that I may have in place. I can feel with my finger that it's nice evened out. Then I'm going to clean it up. Next thing we'll be doing is we'll be applying stain. There are several ways you can do this. You get ready to use a staining pen that you can use for floors, or you can find out matching color for your wood type and just kind of basically apply that stain with the rag or with the paintbrush, and you'll have to just kind of work your way in to match the color. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this stain, and after a couple of minutes I'm going to wipe it out and see how dark my stain is. You don't want to be too dark and you don't want to be too light. So there may be several attempts to match the color. All I'm going to do is I'm going to just always have gloves when you're working with the stain. They're pretty hard to take out from my fingers. Just going to apply a decent amount of stain, and all my wood filling material will just basically absorb this stain. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes and then we'll wipe it off and see how much of a color difference we are seeing. We may actually have to actually leave it up to 10 minutes, who knows. But we'll have a more idea when we actually do the first wipe and see how close I'm getting to my current wood color. I'm gonna give a few more minutes and then we'll just kind of basically same rag, we're just gonna wipe it out and see the color difference we see. The longer you leave the stain on the surface, the darker the color is going to be. Nothing magical about it. If you read the direction says the same thing. Our goal is different here. Our goal is not to stain any new wood. Our goal is to actually match this stain with my existing wooden floor. So that becomes a little bit tricky because you're trying to shoot for one specific color versus just trying to stain entire wood, which could be any of the darkness of the stain. I think it's a fair enough time. Let's just wipe it off and see how close I am. As you can see, my wood filler picked up some color, but it's not picking up a whole lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up actually having a very thin layer and just kind of put it on it and let it basically dry out. And I'll let it dry out for about 5 minutes, and then we'll just come back here and wipe out the excess, and we'll see how close the color matches. Okay, so it's been almost 5 minutes now. I'm going to try to kind of wipe clean the excess stain and see how close I am on the color match. I still see a light and dark difference, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to let it put one more small thin coat and let it dry, and wipe out again and try to match again. Good. Okay, so this area has been dried out, and the stain that I had applied is basically kind of dried out. I did that because I knew that I'm going to be needing pretty dark color to match my wood. So I'm going to just wipe out excess stain and you can see it came out pretty good. You can hardly even tell that this wood had a damage unless you're really looking for it. If you remember, when I was moving my nail, it was getting caught on wood. Just been filled and stayed. If you move a little bit away, you won't be able to tell anything that where the damage was and how big was it.